My name is Jen Mason, and I'm a high school English teacher in a local community near Flint. I teach 11th grade English, and I lecture part-time at the University of Michigan, Flint. I really like this family photo. It's one of the nicer photos where we're all in it. It's kind of hard for us all to get in a photo right now with them being so little.
What is that?
Well, we've always heard about it since they switched the water. And we could immediately tell within 2 days of the water switch that the water quality was different, and we immediately had to buy filters for our shower and for our tub, and started buying bottled water for our kids to drink just because the chlorine smell was so strong. It would burn your eyes some days when we would run a tub for the kids, and then other days it would smell like the lake, you know, that earthy smell that you can smell when you're swimming in a lake, or sometimes like the sulfur smell when you boil eggs. I just ordered a new filter for it. So it lasts 30 baths, which is about 2 months worth maybe if my kids take 2 baths a week. So.
My name is Janae Young. I am a nursing assistant at Genesis Hospital and also an instructor at Baker College. It takes about 10 bottles a day to give my daughter a bath. Whenever I get my daughter a bath, you know, I get this large pot out here. I take some water bottles or the jug, which sometimes I just use one jug. I pour it in here, turn it on, we warm it up, and you know, I put her tub in there and I pour the water in, and then I get a couple cool bottles to cool the water down and get it to her room temp, and we give her a bath. And with my son, it's been real hard with him. We do a shower every other day with the water. I just stand and keep eye on him. I only let him shower for no more than 5 minutes, and I tell him not to breathe the water in. On the other days we do sponge baths, so we just do the same routine with the sponge baths, but he's just too big for me to actually keep pouring pots and pots of water in the tub to try to give him a bath. I still use the water. I don't have a choice. I don't have a choice but to use the water. So I just do my best and try not to breathe the water also. This is my daughter, Zeta McGee. She is 1 year old now. This is my son, Darius and Zeta. I lived in Flint all my life. When I found out the water was contaminated was probably about 5-6 months ago. But when they switched over to Flint water supplies, Flint River, I knew the water would be contaminated then, so I took precautions early. The only thing I really do with the water now is like wash clothes and, you know, flush the toilet and clean up. And I'm scared to do that because it might sit on the counter. Her bed and her playpen and toys. My daughter have had 2 huge rashes since this issue started, and you know, the doctor gave her antibiotics. They cleared up, but it's sickening. It's so sickening because I don't know what to do.
So this is my son's bedroom with all of his Thomas trains. So this is where he hangs out. To have a basic human right taken away from me is ridiculous and infuriating. It really makes me question how valued we are in the state, which sounds silly, but now I'm starting to worry about our appliances because even General Motors can't use the water to, you know, in their plant on their cars. What's that doing to my home and to my dishwasher and my washer and dryer, or my washer and my, you know, hot water heater? Am I going to be out tons more money? Not only am I spending $130 a month for water I can't drink, and I have to get water from elsewhere, but what's it doing to the rest of my house, and how am I going to be affected with that?
I'm outraged. I'm angry. We should get refunded for the overpayments we've been paying for water that's been poisonous for the last 2 years. This is where my 9-year-olds hang out. helped put together a protest for the kids in October. I gathered as many kids as possible. We made signs. I had my kids right by my side, front line. And, you know, we went down to the City Hall, the Flint Water Department, and we were loud as we can be. We just did another protest. We all got together and we all took a bus to the Capitol in Lansing, and Governor Snyder was addressing his state of the state. And we went down there and we protested as loud as we could, and they actually can hear us during his state of the state.
I worry about what the water quality was before. Was it always safe? Because they've been telling us it has been safe and it wasn't. So now I second guess a lot of my decisions that I've made as a parent, and I worry about my kids. And when I was pregnant, was I ingesting water that was safe? I can't imagine being a parent of a child whose health has been affected in a way that is irreversible. It's incomprehensible, and I can't imagine what I would do as a parent. Thankfully, my kids have been tested and they're fine, but it's unacceptable. This should have never happened, and they should never have to deal with the problems now that they're going to have to deal with. I have to get water from elsewhere, but what's it doing to the rest of my house, and how am I going to be affected with that for the rest of their lives?
Water trucks on every corner passing out water. Who lives like that? Don't nobody. Who pulls up and get a case of water just to live for one day? And they're doing this every day now. How long is that going to last? How long is bottled water going to come in to supply people with water? After that stop, then what?
Emergency in Flint, to send more resources on top of the assistance that we've already put on the ground. We've designated a federal coordinator to make sure the people of Flint get what they need from their country. Yesterday, I met with Mayor Weaver in the White House in the Oval Office. And I told her that we are going to have her back and all the people of Flint's back as they work their way through this terrible tragedy.
And this week's issue of Time magazine features a cover story entitled "The Poisoning of an American City," about the devastating and terrifying water crisis in Flint, Michigan. Take a look.
Imagine the water that flows into your home that your children drink and bathe in was poisoned, and the government knew about it yet failed to keep you safe. It was a terrifying reality that Flint, Michigan Mayor Karen Weaver faced when she took office just 2 months ago.
This is something that nobody should have to deal with. Everybody should have clean water.
It all began in April 2014 when an emergency management team appointed by Governor Snyder made the catastrophic decision to implement a money-saving plan to draw drinking water from the Flint River without properly treating the water. This resulted in a citywide contamination of the water supply that had children testing positive for lead poisoning. Once the scandal broke, it dominated national headlines, leading the White House to declare a state of emergency, allocating up to $5 million in FEMA money to deal with the crisis. And just this week, 2 separate class action lawsuits were filed on behalf of Flint citizens. But federal aid, legal action, and national headlines provide no comfort for the thousands of affected residents, many of them kids.
And here via satellite to give us an update on this tragedy is the mayor of Flint, Karen Weaver. And I do want to mention we will be talking to Cher in just a moment. I know she's a big advocate for your city, but let's get right into this. Mayor Weaver, you stepped into this 2 months ago. You took the job. Everyone wants to politicize this right now, but we're talking about lead poisoning, potential irreversible effects and brain damage. What's being done to help your citizens?
You're absolutely right. That is what we're talking about is lead poisoning. And so right now what's being done, we have some programs going on. We have bottled water being handed out. We have filters being given out. We're continuing to test the water, but that's not enough. I know you said that the president has declared an emergency and FEMA has come down. We have the National Guard there, but what we're dealing with right now are still Band-Aids. Those are Band-Aids that we need, but we know we need a lot more. We need finances, we need supports for our kids and families. We have to put services in place because we deserve to be taken care of. We didn't deserve what happened to us, but we certainly deserve the resources to be able to take care of the kids and families in our community.
And Mayor, this is Sunny Hossett. I mean, certainly you will have to take care of these children because we know that lead poisoning is forever. It actually drops a child's IQ and you can't mitigate the impact of an irreversible neurotoxin. And so my question to you is, the New York Times had an article about environmental racism and said that this is why this happened. And let's face it, Flint is only 70 miles from the Great Lakes, which is the largest group of freshwater bodies in the world. 40% of the people in Flint live in poverty. The city doesn't even have a grocery store. So isn't it true that because the city doesn't have political clout, that is why this happened?
Well, that's what many of us believe, and it's something that a lot of people don't want to talk about and don't want to deal with because it's always a difficult subject. But what else can we think when you look at what happened? You know, we're in Flint, and every place around us is getting clean water. Mm-hmm. And like you said, we're in the Great Lakes state. We should have access to water. And for that switch to be made without due diligence being done as far as putting in the proper treatment and testing it before you give it to the people, that's a travesty.
Are you prepared to say that this was environmental racism, that this happened because the citizens of Flint are African American?
Not only African American, we also have issues. We think it's a class issue as well because we do have so many unemployed people. So we're looking at this as race, as class, and it cuts across the board. And I believe that that's actually why the local NAACP, state and national, have all spoken out about this as well. We believe had this been a different community, a rich community, that it wouldn't have taken so long for the people's voices to be heard because this has been going on. It will be 2 years in April that we've been dealing with this. And it took a year at least for our voices to be heard. And you talked about some of that. It happened under emergency manager. And emergency manager seems to happen in predominantly African American communities.
Mayor, this is Sarah. You just mentioned the crisis has really been going on for 2 years now. And when was the contamination discovered, and which government officials knew what was going on?
Well, you know what? That's what we're still trying to get the actual correct information about. The residents knew something was wrong immediately after the switch. Right. You know, it was a no-brainer to us that something was wrong because no one could tell us that brown water was safe to drink. Right. And it was brown, or it smelled funny, it tasted funny. If you didn't have those kinds of symptoms, you noticed that when you washed your clothes, they didn't feel right. You had to wash your shower much more frequently. People had skin issues, hair issues, falling out. And we had some families who had noticed some developmental issues with their children. And that's when things really got started. But no one heard their cry. And it took a year of people protesting, pastors coming together and speaking out. I remember when I was campaigning, I said, if it's possible to take off your hat as a candidate in a campaign, that's what I'm doing because I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. And I had an ethical and moral responsibility to speak up and speak out about this because I knew the damage that it could do. And I had a press conference in September talking about this, but it didn't get much traction. And that was the same time, right after that, Dr. Edwards from Virginia Tech spoke out, and that really got the ball rolling. And the very next week, our medical community, thank God for them, had been doing some testing, and they came to the forefront as well. And that's when things really got moving.
Right. Okay, this is Joy speaking. Michigan Governor Rick Snyder has apologized, saying he will take a quote-unquote full responsibility for fixing this so-called catastrophe, quote-unquote. Those are his quotes. Just this morning, he claimed that it was civil servants from the Department of Environmental Quality who failed to make the water in Flint safe. Bernie Sanders, filmmaker Michael Moore, and many protesters have called for his resignation. Now, do you think Governor Snyder needs to step down?
You know what, and that's a real good one, and that's something that I've said the governor needs to decide that, because we have been seeing resignations. One of the things we've been waiting for in the city of Flint for a long, long time is for people to be held accountable, and you see it's starting to happen. There's an investigation. That's a real good one, and that's something that I've said the governor needs to decide that, because we have been seeing resignations. One of the things we've been waiting for, you are asking who knew what when. We haven't gotten that actual information, and that's what we've been waiting for. And whoever is implicated as being responsible for this, from the governor down, needs to do that. And I think it's going to be more than just one person. We've seen 3 resignations already. I'm looking for more to come, but whoever is implicated there, that's what needs to happen. They have to be held accountable, and that's what we want. It's been an interesting situation for me, because in the meantime, you know, he's the governor, and so I've been working. I have to work with whoever is in place. So my responsibility has really been to stay focused on what are the services, what are the finances, what do we need, and make sure that happens while he's there. You know, if he continues to stay, I want to make sure we get what we need and what we deserve, because we didn't deserve what happened to us in the city of Flint.
And Mayor, I know that I just want to mention too, Governor Rick Snyder did release all of the transcript of his emails from 2015. There was no discussion of race. It was all about cost relating and cost cutting. But you bring up a good point. Rather than politicizing, do something about it. We know there's culpability at every level of government, local, state, and federal. And we just want to say thank you for joining us. And we are sending our thoughts and our prayers to the people of Flint.